My mom is a white tiger, and my dad is also a white tiger, but I turned out to be a little black tiger, which made everyone furious. My dad tied up my mom and whipped her for 3 days and nights, then fought with the black chimpanzee next door for 7 days and nights, but still couldn't figure out my bloodline. In a fit of anger, he left home, abandoning me, my mom, and a tiger little brother. But in my opinion, this little brother is a bit dumb. When I was just a month old, one day, Tiger Mom went out hunting, leaving me and my little brother, 2 cubs, playing in the cave. My playful little brother slowly explored his way out of the cave. But unexpectedly, an adult black bear happened to pass by. As fellow predators, of course it wouldn't let a rival's cub go. The black bear roared and charged at my little brother, who was so scared he froze on the spot. At the critical moment, I dragged my little brother back into the cave. In the end, it was thanks to Tiger Mom rushing back in time that the 2 of us escaped danger. If I didn't have the appearance of a tiger god, but actually possessed a human soul, I might have perished long ago in this perilous forest. This also made me desperately want to gain the power to protect myself. When it was time to eat, Tiger Mom would lie down in front of us and gently expose her belly. At first, I was very resistant, but when the warm milk flowed into my stomach and a wave of warmth spread throughout my body, I felt like I woke up again. So when it came to eating, I was even more enthusiastic than my mischievous little brother behind me. At the same time, after a few months of growing, I noticed that I seemed a bit different from other tigers. First, I had an especially big appetite, always feeling like I could never get enough to eat. Second, my body grew faster than my brother, who was born at the same time. By 5 months old, I already weighed 40 kilograms. But my little brother weighed only a bit over 20 kilograms. At this point, we also had to start trying meat. The first time I tasted wild boar meat, still bloody, an even greater surge of warmth appeared in my belly, and then slowly spread throughout my whole body. It seemed that eating meat could make me stronger. A month later, when we were half a year old, Tiger Mom began to teach us hunting skills. Suddenly, there was a cold sharpness in her gaze, as if she had spotted prey. Ahead, a group of sika deer was grazing on honey grass. Every few minutes, one of the deer would lift its head to scan the surroundings. I lay quietly to the side, watching Tiger Mom hunt. I also learned from the experience. The 3 of us, mother and her 2 tiger cubs, were positioned downwind. The sika deer couldn't catch our scent. Tiger Mom turned around and signaled for my little brother and me to stay put. Taking advantage of the terrain, she crawled stealthily toward the herd. Within a few minutes, she had closed the distance to less than 100 meters. Then, seizing the moment when the deer let down their guard, Tiger Mom shot out from the low grass like a bolt of lightning. With her tremendous burst of speed, she caught up to them and used her weight advantage to knock down a stag, pinning it under her jaws and quickly locking onto its throat. She finished off the prey, and the entire hunting process took less than 30 seconds. Mum dragged the stag over to where my little brother and I were, licked the blood from the corner of her mouth, then stepped back a couple of paces and lay down. It was obvious she was signaling for my brother and me to eat first, but my little brother still wasn't used to eating such bloody meat. Just as he tried to quietly nurse, Tiger Mom sternly swatted him away. Whimpering, my brother walked off, looking as aggrieved as could be. Meanwhile, I was already feasting heartily. After finishing my share, I still felt a bit hungry, so I boldly moved toward the remaining food. Seeing this, Tiger Mom just let out a low growl, then turned her head away, giving me silent permission. I devoured the entire lower half of the stag, and at the same time, an even more powerful surge of warmth rose from my belly. I still didn't know what this warmth was, but every time it flowed through my body, I felt an endless supply of strength. In the days that followed, Mom would play fight with my brother and me in the clearing in front of our den, using this as a way to train and teach us hunting and self-defense skills. Life passed by slowly in this leisurely yet serious manner, until one day, on our way back from a hunt, the 3 of us, mother and her 2 cubs, heard a deep and terrifying tiger's roar. The roar echoed through the forest. A strange male tiger. Mom's expression grew tense, leaping high to watch and scan the area. My brother froze, trembling with fear. Since that male appeared, I haven't slept well, feeling a tremendous threat from the outside world. To keep us safe, Mom patrolled our territory for hundreds of kilometers. This dangerous sign meant she wouldn't let us hunt with her for several days in a row. After several days of patrolling the territory, and neither hearing nor seeing any trace of the strange male tiger, Mom was finally able to relax. She resumed taking us out hunting. Until one day, something unusual happened. While we were out hunting, we came across the carcass of a male bear that looked to weigh over 300 kilograms. However, it had already been eaten down to just the skull and skeleton. Next to the bear's body, there were clearly visible, massive tiger paw prints, proving the strength of this unfamiliar tiger. Mom approached the scene with a tense expression to investigate. Even if he wanted to hunt this large male bear, he would surely have to pay the price of serious injury. But after checking the surroundings, there were no signs that the strange tiger was hurt. A chill rose in my heart. If the 3 of us, mother and cubs, were to encounter this unfamiliar tiger, we probably wouldn't survive. For our safety, Mom had no choice but to lead us toward an unfamiliar forest. Perhaps pressured by the presence of that strange tiger, Mom hurried us along without stopping. But the more you fear something, the more likely it is to happen. Suddenly, a loud tiger roar echoed through the woods. Mom didn't dare to delay. Vaguely, she felt an immense pressure weighing on her heart. She was certain that something was chasing us from behind, and it was very likely the same male tiger we had never met before. All we could do now was try to put as much distance as possible between us and this unfamiliar male tiger. Like this, the 3 of us, mother and cubs, ran non-stop for 2 hours. Just as we emerged from a dense patch of grass into an open area, Mom was the first to react. She suddenly leapt 2 or 3 meters forward, forward, blocking us with her body, and let out an extremely fierce tiger roar. About 200 or 300 meters ahead, a majestic and powerfully built male tiger was already waiting for us. Judging by his size and fur color, he had just reached adulthood and was in his prime. His weight was conservatively over 540 jin. Although Mom was much larger than the average female Amur tiger, in front of such a massive male tiger, there was simply no way she could protect both cubs. She had to do something. Mom let out a tentative low growl, hoping to scare him off. However, faced with her warning, the male tiger not only showed no intention of backing down, but instead, with a touch of gentlemanly composure, began to stride step by step toward her. It seemed he intended to communicate with Mom first. One female and one male, the two adult tigers faced off against each other, and the tension in the scene reached its peak at this moment. I hid in the grass, constantly watching the situation unfold, thinking about how to break the deadlock. But in the next second, the male tiger suddenly lunged at Mom. She showed no fear and charged straight at him. The fight lasted only a brief moment before the male tiger seized an opportunity. His immense power caused her to instantly lose her balance and fall to the ground. If she moved even a little, the male tiger's sharp and long fangs would instantly snap her neck, just as I was preparing to escape with my little brother for the last time. Suddenly, an angry roar echoed from the forest not far away. It was the call of another male tiger, but to Mom, it sounded incredibly precious at this moment. With the sound of rapid movement, an enormous Amur tiger appeared, exuding a terrifying aura from head to toe. He was even stronger, fiercer, and more domineering than the male tiger who had just knocked Mom down. And at this moment, an uncontrollable killing intent surged from his entire body. This was Dad. Dad was now furious. How could he possibly tolerate the attacker who had harmed his mate and cubs? In the next instant, Dad's eyes flashed with a cold light. The massive tiger suddenly sprang into action, lunging at the unfamiliar male like a bolt of lightning. Watching these two fierce beasts fight for their lives, I finally experienced firsthand just how terrifying an adult male tiger can be. As they exchanged blows, both sides landed hits, but Dad gradually gained the upper hand, thanks to his weight and experience. I saw Dad maul one of the stranger's eyes, rendering it useless. Just as they were about to clash again, the unfamiliar male suddenly changed tactics, leaping fiercely in the direction of Mom and me. With a swipe of its paw, it knocked me aside and then fled down the path. I felt as if my whole body was about to split apart. No one expected that this male tiger would choose to run away. On the other side, Dad came running over with heavy steps. His eyes swept over me, and for a moment, an uncontrollable tenderness flashed in them. There even seemed to be a hint of guilt in his expression. If he had been able to kill that despicable tiger outright, his cub wouldn't have suffered this undeserved calamity. This battle had left him with quite a few injuries as well, but fortunately, none were serious. He would recover after a few days of rest. I don't know how much time passed before I woke up from unconsciousness, only to feel my whole body wrapped in a warm current, with my injuries healing at a speed visible to the naked eye. But compared to me, Mom's condition was much more serious. For animals, facing such severe injuries often means leaving it to fate. Mom seemed to realize that she was nearing the end of her life. I tried to mobilize the mysterious energy within me, wanting to share it with her, but found that it was completely beyond my control. Looking up at the surrounding forest, a thought suddenly occurred to me. Maybe I could find some herbs in the woods to treat internal injuries. After all, most medicines that work for humans can also be used by animals. It was early summer at that moment, the time of year when the climate and rainfall are most favorable. That's why many Chinese medicinal herbs also begin to grow and sprout at this time. If only I could find some wild ginseng that's been growing for years in these places, that would be perfect. I have to say, in the territory where Wu Ba lives, the flora and fauna are still quite rich and diverse. It didn't take long before I found 2 small ginseng roots. After Mom Tiger took the ginseng, her injuries indeed improved, so Dad Tiger started taking me and my younger brother out to hunt. After half a month of training, not only did my body become stronger and more robust, but even my speed and sense of smell improved significantly. I could even detect every scent within 30 kilometers. Finally, I began my very first hunt. Following the hunting experience passed down from Dad Tiger, I began to select the best hunting ground. 10 kilometers away from the cave, I finally found a slightly raised hill. Not only did it offer a wide view, making it easy to observe the movements of prey, but the tall and dense weeds growing here also made it hard for me to be spotted. I lay down in the grass, and wave after wave of small animals came and went by the creek. Some left, and others arrived. Eventually, when a herd of more than a dozen wild boars appeared, I made up my mind. Wild boars have an extremely strong reproductive ability, and apart from the adult ones that could pose a threat to me, the piglets were only a bit faster, but manageable. Among this group, there were 3 adult wild boars. The first thing I needed to do was to lure them away, taking advantage of the moment when the herd let down their guard to drink water. I leapt out from the grass, and the adult wild boars reacted the fastest, while the piglets were momentarily stunned by my tiger's roar before following their parents and starting to flee. I had already predicted their escape route. My body sprang from the grass, and in an instant, I pounced directly at the scattering piglets. One of them tried to make a sharp turn, attempting to fake me out, but having watched countless episodes of wildlife documentaries, how could I be fooled by such a simple trick? At the very moment the piglet turned, I seized the opportunity and bit down, catching the piglet that ran straight into me. The taste of blood instantly filled my mouth, and I tossed the now helpless prey aside. I continued to chase after the remaining fleeing piglets. After several rounds, the results were impressive. During the hunt and pursuit, I could feel the changes in my muscles and bones. Not only had they become much stronger, but my speed had also increased significantly, and my reactions were several times faster than those of other animals. These changes most likely stemmed from that mysterious energy within my body. If I could keep using this mysterious energy to strengthen myself, I can hardly imagine the power and speed I would possess once I truly matured. Just as I was carrying a piglet back, a strange scent suddenly appeared in the grass ahead, and there were quite a few of them. Moments later, several grey wolves sprang out. The leading wolf king was a bit smaller than me, but there were quite a few of them, and it was accompanied by some juvenile wolf pups. Why would grey wolves move their whole family into a tiger's territory? Although I was a bit puzzled, I wasn't afraid. The leading grey wolf king was the first to let out a warning howl toward the sky. I didn't want to bother with these wolf pups, but after all, this was my tiger father's territory. Since this pack of grey wolves had brought their whole family and barged in, as the young master of this land, I had a duty to help my father teach these intruders a lesson. Immediately, a deep tiger roar thundered toward the grey wolf pack across from me. The lead wolf instinctively showed some fear at the sound, but when it saw that I was just a juvenile tiger cub, and also noticed the prey in my mouth, in an instant, it cast aside its fear and bared its fangs, looking like it was ready to charge at me and fight to the death. I wasn't about to indulge them either. I placed the two prey on the ground, pinned them down with a tiger paw, and then looked ahead with a contemptuous gaze. Under the fierce stares of the grey wolves, I began to tear into and devour the two piglets. It would only take me a few big bites to finish them off, but I deliberately tore at them bit by bit, right in front of the wolf pack, fully provoking them. The lead wolf was clearly getting agitated if it didn't show something now. Otherwise, the other wolves under its command might start having other ideas. The lead wolf gave an order, and the rest of the grey wolves no longer hesitated. Female wolves protected the pups at a distance, while the rest of the pack spread out, surrounding me in the center. A fierce battle between tiger and wolves was about to erupt. My eyes narrowed, and I charged straight at the lead wolf. The pack hadn't expected a tiger cub to make the first move. By the time they reacted, I had already sent the lead wolf flying with a single swipe. At that moment, the wolves behind caught up and began to surround me, biting at my hindquarters. In no time, I had several more wounds, which instantly awakened my animal instincts. I caught one of the grey wolves attacking me and bit down hard on its neck. With a crunch, I actually snapped its neck. Suddenly, a surge of powerful energy erupted within me, instantly boosting my strength to a whole new level. The wolf pack was terrified. They had never seen such a ferocious tiger cub before, and immediately scattered and fled. I returned to the cave, tossed the grey wolf's corpse onto the ground, and let out a triumphant roar toward my tiger father and mother. I told them about what had happened outside. Upon hearing it, Tiger Dad immediately leapt out in a single bound. As the master of this territory, he could not tolerate other predators invading his land and bullying his cubs. Watching Tiger Dad leave, I felt a warm sense of being cherished. Tiger Brother just couldn't figure it out. Why? When we were both tiger cubs, was I so outstanding? He felt a deep sense of frustration in his heart. About an hour later, Tiger Dad returned, bringing back several Wolf King corpses with him. For now, with Tiger Dad around, we had no worries about food or clothing, but these good days wouldn't last forever. The Amma Tiger is a solitary hunter, and also the king at the top of the food chain. Even the mother who is raising us now will, without hesitation, drive us out of her territory once we reach adulthood. As evening fell, Tiger Dad and Tiger Mom gradually drifted off to sleep. I quietly slipped out of the tiger den. The next moment, little Tiger Brother followed me, and as we walked, we came to an open patch of grass. Just then, a strange cry suddenly rang out. A lynx was hunting a snow hare up ahead. Normally, predators like lynxes and grey wolves wouldn't be found within a tiger's territory, but we've encountered them several times in just a few days. Could something have happened in the other parts of the forest? Perhaps it's time to remind Tiger Dad to patrol his territory. Back in the cave, Tiger Dad sniffed the lynx fur I brought back and immediately flew into a rage. Gone was his previous laziness. He became full of authority and couldn't wait to go out and patrol his territory. After thinking for a moment, I followed him. Even though little Tiger Brother was already quite tired, he forced himself to keep up as well. Tiger Dad's territory is vast. It would take at least 10 days or half a month to patrol it all. Watching Tiger Dad stride leisurely through the jungle, his calm and unhurried demeanor truly showed me what it means to have the presence of a king. Tiger Dad sprayed urine on a thick tree trunk to mark his territory, warning intruders that this place already has an owner. In this way, we walked along the edge of the territory until the afternoon. At this point, even Tiger Dad was starting to feel a bit tired. Just as he found a shady spot to lie down and rest, a powerful roar suddenly came from ahead. Tiger Dad gazed intently forward, his eyes deep and alert, as if he had sensed something, and stood up from the ground. The next moment, a leopard with a medium build and spotted fur appeared. 6 tiger eyes stared at the leopard, and the leopard on the other side was clearly flustered, turning around and letting out a short, sharp warning roar toward the back. The atmosphere at this moment was extremely tense. Leopards are usually social animals. Before long, another 5 leopards appeared ahead of us. They seemed to think that their numbers were enough to intimidate Tiger Dad, but they clearly underestimated his determination to defend his territory. At the same time, they made a fatal mistake. Never try to provoke a father with cubs. Even if it's just to maintain his image in front of his young, Tiger Dad would never back down. With a roar, Tiger Dad directed his voice straight at the 5 leopards across from him. He didn't attack immediately, because my brother and I were his weakness. It seemed the leopards had figured out Tiger Dad's thinking, and their previously faltering morale was boosted a bit. I finally saw that a newborn calf isn't afraid of a tiger. Tiger Dad didn't attack first, leading the leopards to underestimate tigers. I saw the situation clearly. Tiger Dad could easily handle all 5, but he hesitated, worried about his cubs. I looked up and let out a roar, solemnly shielding my brother. This startled the leopards. They hadn't expected a juvenile tiger to be so fierce. Tiger Dad seemed to understand my intention. In the next moment, his body moved like the wind as he lunged at the 5 leopards. Tiger Dad, throwing all caution aside, grabbed the nearest leopard and began to tear into it. The sheer pressure he exuded once he entered combat mode was so intense that even I, a fellow tiger, felt a chill of fear. The 5 leopards, caught off guard from behind, were even more terrified. In just a single encounter, Tiger Dad used overwhelming force to swat one leopard away and bit another, injuring it severely. The remaining leopards, witnessing this scene, didn't dare linger any longer and hurriedly roared at their companions to flee. Tiger Dad hesitated for a moment and didn't continue the slaughter by chasing after them. He walked over and first rubbed against my fur, then turned to lick Tiger Brother's forehead. It was clear that Tiger Dad was very pleased with my performance. After all, like father, like son, my bravery just now made him feel gratified. Then, we saw Tiger Dad grab the leopard's corpse and dash toward the edge of the territory, marking it with his urine. This was the most effective warning to any other hunters who might invade his territory. After more than 10 minutes, Tiger Dad returned with powerful strides, now carrying several heads with broken necks in his mouth. When it was time to enjoy the spoils, Tiger Dad picked a fat one to start eating, while I led Tiger Brother to a relatively smaller elk to feed on. In the glow of the setting sun, the silhouettes of the 3 tigers, father and sons, were stretched out, as if foreshadowing the rise of a powerful and youthful Amur tiger family. Today's encounter with the 5 young leopards made me understand even more deeply the law of the jungle. The strong rule, and the weak are prey. The carefree life I enjoy now is all thanks to Tiger Dad's protection. But one day, I'll have to leave them and live on my own, so I must quickly strengthen myself. Another night passed, and Tiger Dad led us brothers to continue patrolling the territory. Along the way, the boundary lines we passed weren't as badly damaged as before. Even so, after a rough count, I found more than 20 signs of intrusion along the edges of our territory. This number made me a bit worried. Something must have happened in the neighboring territories, forcing the creatures that originally lived there to migrate into other areas. Moving forward, we headed in the direction of Tiger Dad's cave. After being away for a few days, I actually felt a longing to return home, like a traveler yearning for home. When we returned to the den, Tiger Dad carried a sika deer he had hunted along the way and laid it in front of the tigress, as if trying to please her. I also understood that once Tiger Dad had confirmed the safety of his territory, Tiger Mom would take us away and return to our original home. But once we left Tiger Dad, we would have to rely solely on Tiger Mom's hunting to feed me and my younger brother. I'm afraid that just getting enough to eat will be a problem. It's time to hone my hunting skills on my own. In my previous life as a fishing enthusiast, I knew very well the importance of baiting a spot. In this territory, wild boars are the most abundant, and when it comes to dealing with these plentiful, meaty, but not so bright wild boars, baiting is the simplest and most effective method. I dug up about 20 or 30 gin of roots and tubers, piled them up at a hunting spot, and lay quietly in the jungle, waiting for the wild boars to arrive. In my previous life I was human, now I am a tiger. Knowing how to use the power of intelligence is what makes a Siberian tiger truly fearsome. Before long, a group of wild boars, led by the head boar, timidly made their way toward the spot near my right ear. The wild boar herd didn't stand on ceremony either, and immediately started eating noisily. After picking out a target, I crawled quickly toward the boars, and when I was close enough, I suddenly sprang out from my hiding spot, ignoring the adult boars. I locked onto a wild boar weighing about 50 or 60 gin, and chased it relentlessly. It seemed to realize it couldn't outrun me, and started using feints. The first time it faked a move, it caught me off guard and I almost lost my balance. By the time I adjusted my posture and accelerated again, the wild boar had already put some distance between us. Normally, according to the habits of a Siberian tiger, I should have given up on such prey, but supported by the mysterious energy within me, I didn't care at all about expending stamina. With a roar, I accelerated and chased after that wild boar again. After pursuing it for several kilometers, I finally brought it down. When I returned to the tiger's den, Tiger Dad, Tiger Mom, and Tiger Brother were already asleep. The next day, Tiger Mom took us away, while Tiger Dad stayed lying in the cave and didn't come to see us off. To him, this was probably just a small episode in the long life of a tiger. However, as soon as we stepped into Tiger Mom's territory, something unexpected happened. A series of messy tracks from our kind led to a tigress with 3 cubs as Tiger Mom strolled through the forested mountains. She let out a series of tiger roars, and at this moment, Tiger Mom looked murderous, her eyes filled with nothing but the search for the intruder. Although both were tigresses raising cubs, Tiger Mom had no intention of showing mercy or sympathy to the other. About a dozen kilometers from Tiger Mom's den, we once again found tracks left by the invading tigress, along with the carcass of an adult stag. Tiger Mom was furious. This was like a stranger suddenly breaking into your home, not only making a mess inside, but also leaving behind a pile of stinking garbage. As she walked, Tiger Mom kept letting out angry roars. It was like a reserved middle-aged woman cursing in the street, repeating herself over and over. As the sky grew darker, Tiger Mom stopped roaring, and instead found a higher vantage point to quietly observe the surrounding mountains and forests. She listened intently with both ears for the sounds of animals fleeing in the woods. Her gaze sharpened, and she walked in that direction. Suddenly, I seemed to hear a faint tiger roar. In the forested gorge, 200 or 300 meters ahead, a slightly thin-looking tigress was staring at us. In the next instant, the eyes of the two tigresses met. Tiger Mom let out a series of tiger roars, and the tigress opposite her was equally unwilling to back down. When two tigers meet, there's nothing to say. They go straight into battle, just like two ordinary house cats fighting, swiping at each other with their paws and scratching at each other's bodies, while also biting and rolling on the ground. Although the scene wasn't as imposing as a fight between male tigers, it was just as bloody and brutal. Before long, both Tiger Mom and the invading tigress were injured, but the intruder was clearly at a disadvantage. After all, compared to Tiger Mom's physique, this intruder was much weaker. Even though she fought with all her might, she couldn't change the outcome of defeat. Tiger Mom knocked the intruder to the ground with a swipe of her paw, and bit down hard with her jaws. Seeing their mother defeated, the three tiger cubs who had been hiding in the back couldn't help but rush out, gathering around the tigress and letting out immature tiger roars. They did their best to make their expressions look fierce, hoping to scare off Tiger Mom on the other side. Perhaps moved by the cub's actions, Tiger Mom, who had the upper hand, did not continue her attack. All creatures have feelings, and Tiger Mom was a mother too, after all. After a while, the tigress lying on the ground regained some strength and struggled to her feet, supporting herself with her front paws. When Tiger Mom saw her enemy stand up, she thought the other tigress was still unwilling to give up, and was preparing for a final fight. The look in her eyes, which had softened a bit, immediately turned sharp again, and she was ready to attack once more. However, the intruder seemed to anticipate the consequences of resisting, and under Tiger Mom's gaze, actually crouched down in her direction. Seeing this, Tiger Mom's expression relaxed. Since the other tigress had set aside her pride as a ruler, Tiger Mom would not deal a fatal blow to her or her cubs, but driving them out of her territory was a must. Only after personally witnessing the other tigress leave her territory did Tiger Mom finally relax. What happened today also made Tiger Mom much more vigilant. As for the tigress who had invaded her territory, if she hadn't lost her own land to another tiger in a fight, then it must be that the male tiger encountered an accident and lost the ability to protect and visit the cubs. It's very difficult for a tigress alone to raise 3 large cubs by herself. Even though Tiger Mom just showed them mercy, they probably won't last more than a few days. Every day, aside from accompanying Tiger Mom to patrol the territory, all they can do is wait for their mother to bring back meat to fill their stomachs. As long as I can make it through this winter, by next year, I'll truly be considered a tiger. Every night, I sneak out to exercise, trying to follow my own plan of nightly and morning runs. Besides that, I also climb trees as much as possible to train the muscles and explosive power of my limbs. If I come across wild ginseng along the way, I won't hesitate to give it a try. Of course, while I'm training, I often bring my tiger brother along, and just at this time, at the edge of Tiger Mom's territory, a strong tiger silhouette slowly approaches. It's Tiger Dad. At this moment, he has crossed the boundary of his own territory to come visit me and my brother in Tiger Mom's territory. When Tiger Dad rubs his fur against me to show affection, I am surprised to notice a scar left by a claw mark on his chest and ribs. This scar was probably left by the paw of another male tiger. Later, Tiger Dad explained the whole story. The neighboring territory's resident tiger was killed by another adult male armor tiger, who then took over his territory. That's why there had been so many scenes of animals fleeing in panic before. I suspect that the female tiger, who previously invaded Tiger Mom's territory, likely lost both her mate and her territory, which is why she came here in search of food. It seems Tiger Dad has already fought with this new resident tiger, and as soon as his wounds healed, he hurried over to see us. It was obvious that he was worried the male tiger would come looking for trouble with us. After all, no matter how formidable Tiger Mom is, she could never be a match for a male armor tiger. Tiger Dad took us on a patrol around Tiger Mom's territory, and along the way, he gave her a lot of instructions, like if she encountered the new resident tiger while he was away, she should escape immediately, and so on. When we reached the edge of Tiger Mom's territory, Tiger Dad walked along the boundary to inspect it. He didn't see that powerful rival, but after crossing a slope, he quickly noticed something unusual, the nearly decomposed body of an armor tiger cub, which seemed to be one of those that had previously invaded Tiger Mom's territory. Even the mighty Amur tiger has moments of weakness and helplessness. With one cub dead, the fate of the remaining cubs and their mother was also grim. Tiger Tiger Dad endured the stench as he searched near the cub's corpse. The next moment, another equally imposing figure appeared in the forested mountains about 2 kilometers away, directly facing Tiger Dad. The two tigers locked eyes. Tiger Dad immediately let out a cold warning snarl toward the distance. The male tiger had a long scar running from its forehead all the way down to its nose. It seemed that Tiger Dad had fought with this male tiger before. He hadn't won, but he hadn't lost either. The territorial tiger across from them glanced at our family, then turned and walked back into the forest with an indifferent expression, clearly showing an attitude of, if you don't bother me, I won't bother you. After patrolling the edge of his territory, the atmosphere on the way back felt somewhat heavy. Perhaps it was the pressure from the neighboring territorial tiger that made Tiger Dad start to reflect. The previous tiger in that territory was an older Amur tiger, who would rarely get into conflict with this younger tiger. But now that the territory had changed hands, the pressure on Tiger Mom's side would likely be even greater. Tiger Dad couldn't think of a better solution either. After all, since the other tiger hadn't come directly onto your territory to cause trouble, there was no reason to go over and start a fight. However, just as we were about to reach the tiger den, I clearly heard the sound of something trampling through the grass in the distance. I glanced at Tiger Dad and Tiger Mom ahead, but they didn't seem to notice it. Instantly, I became curious. Lately, I felt myself growing much stronger, so this was a good chance to test it out. And I could bring Tiger Brother along too. Since we were already close to the den, there shouldn't be any danger. Following the faint sound, I led Tiger Brother over. When we got close enough, I pushed off hard with my legs and leapt toward the patch of grass where the sound was coming from. I felt myself grab hold of a furry prey beneath me, and it was actually quite large. It wasn't until I looked down and saw the prey I'd caught that I was stunned. It was a scrawny little tiger cub, and it was the very same one that had followed its mother into our territory a few days ago. I had no idea how it had ended up in our territory again, but Tiger Brother didn't think that much about it. In his eyes, this little tiger was an intruder, and he wanted to imitate Tiger Mom by biting through the cub's neck in one swift move. I quickly stopped Tiger Brother, and a special idea suddenly came to mind. I led Tiger Brother to retreat, pulling back until we disappeared from the little tiger's sight. A few hundred meters behind the cub, inside a cave formed by rocks, there was another little white tiger, and right beside them lay their mother, already dead. In less than 2 weeks, the once mighty family of the King of Beasts had fallen to such a state. Glancing around at the surrounding jungle, I made a bold decision. I would support these two cubs, even though they were the offspring of intruders. After all, though I have the body of a tiger, my soul is ultimately still human. As for whether they would survive in the end, or if Tiger Mom would discover them and kill them, that would be left to fate. Tiger Brother was frightened by my actions and didn't know what to do, whether he should tell our parents about the presence of these intruders. But after we returned to the tiger's den, Tiger Brother didn't say anything to our parents. Instead, he found a corner and sulked by himself. He just couldn't understand why I, his older brother, would help the intruders. When dawn broke, Father Wu prepared to leave, since he had his own territory to look after, and staying away too long could lead to trouble. In the days that followed, I practiced relentlessly every day. Gradually, I was even able to hunt and kill some larger animals on my own. With the mysterious energy inside me, plus occasionally eating a few pieces of wild ginseng, my body was becoming stronger and stronger, especially when it came to hunting and survival. I felt that there was still so much I needed to learn. I possessed human intelligence and ways of thinking, as well as the powerful physique of a Siberian tiger. If I could combine the two, then a Siberian tiger with human wisdom and formidable strength should be able to stand at the very top of this forest. During this time, the food that Tiger Mom gave me, including some prey I caught myself, I would secretly give to the two little cubs of the intruders whenever I had the chance, without Tiger Mom knowing. But what troubled me was that hunting skills are always passed down from father to son, or mother to son. Sooner or later, these two cubs would have to learn how to hunt. It seemed that this task would also fall on my shoulders, eating, practicing hunting, and feeding the two orphaned cubs. These things filled my daily life. After a period of training and accumulating hunting experience, my temperament underwent a dramatic transformation, and my physique now looked almost the same as Tiger Mom's. Precisely because of this, I began to notice the unfair treatment I was receiving becoming more and more obvious. Not only did the portion of food Tiger Mom brought back for me get smaller each time, but even during hunts, I would occasionally be scolded by her. Sometimes she would even roar at me as a stern warning. I understood in my heart that Tiger Mom now saw me as a grown cub. After all, as a tiger matures, its territorial instincts gradually strengthen, and my rapidly increasing appetite during this period made Tiger Mom feel threatened. Although I was not yet old enough to live independently away from my mother, I was already showing signs of competing with her for territory and resources. This was also why her attitude toward me was getting worse. Perhaps after this winter, I would be ruthlessly driven away by Tiger Mom. This is a natural rule that Siberian tigers have followed for millions of years to ensure their own survival. Even if I went to Tiger Dad's territory to hunt, it would be the same. But even then, I would need his approval and signal before I could do so. Otherwise, I would be considered an intruder. Even if I am his own son, Tiger Dad would show me no mercy. The time for this is approaching, and when Tiger Dad comes to visit us, I plan to discuss this issue with him, since there are very few small prey left in Tiger Mom's territory. So, whenever I went out hunting alone after that, I sensibly traveled to places more than 30 kilometers away from the den. Unexpectedly, danger followed. As I was dragging a moose carcass back, the scent of blood scattered by the wind attracted a huge black bear, which started tracking me by smell. Coincidentally, it was the same bear that Tiger Dad had once beaten up. This creature is definitely not something I can afford to provoke right now, but after working hard for hours to hunt down this prey, I really couldn't bear to just give it up so easily. As I watched the black bear getting closer and closer, I panicked. I let go of the prey I was biting and roared in the direction the black bear was coming from. Maybe it was intimidated by my tiger's roar, and combined with my nearly adult tiger size, it actually made the black bear stop in its tracks. However, I made a big mistake. After intimidating the black bear, I picked up the prey and kept walking. This behavior piqued the black bear's curiosity, because after all, when would an Amur tiger ever be afraid of a black bear, especially when hunting prey within its own territory? Seeing this, the black bear concluded that the Amur tiger in front of it was somewhat fearful, and most likely a newly matured tiger. Faced with such a large piece of meat, the black bear finally gave chase. I looked back and was stunned. Somehow, the black bear that had just been intimidated now stood up and let out a howl to provoke me. This was blatant provocation. I let go of my prey and, without hesitation, let out a roar. This was a matter of dignity for a future king, but by doing so, I only made the black bear even more certain. I was indeed a newly matured Amur tiger, without much experience. In the black bear's eyes, this was a heaven-sent opportunity, but I was not afraid at all. My muscles instantly exploded with tremendous power as I lunged at the black bear, biting into its side. Although I managed to sink my teeth into the bear's flank, I was also struck by one of its paws. I wasn't injured, but the pain only further agitated the black bear, unleashing even more of its fighting instincts. I kept dodging while using my own advantages to inflict as much damage as possible on the black bear, but this pitch-black creature had an incredibly high defense. Next, I ignored my injuries and traded blows with the bear, attacking even if I got hurt. My inner energy stirred. The more I fought, the braver I became, intimidating the bear. When we separated, it actually ran away. I won purely by my own strength against a grown bear. Any young Amur tiger would be proud. It took 2 hours to drag my prey to a flat area. Eating made my energy feel more substantial. I carried the remaining food in my mouth. I headed in the direction where the 2 orphan tigers were. Ever since the tigress had shown increasingly obvious signs of distancing herself from me, I had started to pay special attention to feeding the 2 orphan tigers. After feeding them for a month or two, these 2 orphans no longer harbored the hostility toward me and my little tiger brother that they once did. After all, Amur tigers are intelligent creatures. If I could win these 2 orphans over and train them to become loyal subordinates, then in the future, it's very possible that under my leadership, the strongest team in the history of Amur tigers could be born. Even if you are powerful, facing 4 adult Amur tigers, you would still meet your end in the forest. Dragging the food, I arrived in front of the cave where the 2 orphan tigers lived. This time, after putting down the food, I didn't leave immediately. I planned to test these 2 orphan tigers. If they still showed hostility toward me, I might not keep them around any longer. I deliberately came over while still covered in wounds, so that even if the 2 orphans tried to attack me now, I could easily handle them. When the 2 tiger cubs saw the food at the entrance of the cave and noticed my injured self not far away, they ignored the food and came straight to me, letting out anxious roars. One of the orphan tigers kept licking my wounds with its tongue. Feeling the actions of these 2 little ones, I realized that what I had raised were not 2 ungrateful tigers. Then, putting on a show of using all my strength, I pushed the 2 orphan tigers toward the food. These 2 simple-minded, naive tigers had never experienced the dangers of the world. Even after seeing me so badly injured, they were still worried about me. They immediately lowered their heads and rubbed against my fur, acting so gentle and quiet, having gained their affection and trust. As long as I could provide enough food to raise them, my plan to form the strongest team of Amur tigers in the future now seemed possible. In the end, after repeatedly pushing them toward the food, the 2 little ones finally started tearing at the prey and devouring it. To make it easier to tell the 2 cubs apart, I named them Tiger 1 and Tiger 2. Now, even after fighting with all my might, I could only injure the black bear, not kill it like an adult Amur tiger would. This also meant that, aside from not provoking large predators, I could now face off directly against mid-level hunters like leopards. Just then, Fifth Brother came running over with a piece of meat in his mouth. The way Tiger 1 and Tiger 2 looked at Fifth Brother wasn't exactly hostile, but it wasn't particularly friendly either. I immediately decided to have the little ones train together, to help build some team spirit and prevent any future infighting. I called the 3 cubs over to a secluded canyon in the forest and began their first official training session. We didn't stop until nightfall. When they were so exhausted, they collapsed. During this period, I stopped eating the food provided by Tiger Mom, but every few days, I would still return to the area around the tiger den to observe her movements just in case she discovered where Tiger 1 and Tiger 2 were hiding. At the same time, I would secretly follow Tiger Mom when she went out hunting to learn from her experience. As the weather gradually turned colder, there were fewer and fewer animals to hunt. There was even a time when we both set our sights on the same prey. In the end, I backed off. After all, Tiger Mom is the true queen of this territory. After much thought, I decided to take the risk and hunt in Tiger Dad's territory. Before leaving, I told Tiger Brother to make sure to protect Tiger 1 and Tiger 2. Otherwise, given the temperament of Siberian tigers, if Tiger Mom were to discover the existence of Tiger 1 and Tiger 2, she would definitely kill them without hesitation. I ran intermittently for half a month, and finally arrived at Tiger Dad's territory. Just as I had guessed, the resources in Tiger Dad's territory were much more abundant. Wild boars, and even some herbivores like sika deer could still be seen from time to time. After more than 2 hours of waiting, I finally spotted a group of wild boars. There was no technique involved, just a burst of sheer strength. Now my explosive power is more than enough to overpower any wild boar. Out of the 2 wild boars, I ate one, and deliberately left the other as a gift for Tiger Dad, since I had intruded into his territory. As night began to fall, I entered the mountain where Tiger Dad's cave was located. Before I even got close, I sensed something unusual in the surrounding grass. It was too quiet. I let out a loud roar toward the valley ahead. Not long after, Tiger Dad, who had been hiding in the grass, slowly revealed himself. I thought to myself, if I barged in recklessly, I'd probably get a serious beating. After all, I'm a tiger now too, and to Tiger Dad, I've already become something of a threat. Maybe it was the familiar scent that confused him. A little cub he hadn't seen for a month or two had now grown to nearly the size of an adult tiger. Any father would be a bit bewildered by that. I could clearly see the wariness in Tiger Dad's eyes, which made me sigh. Then I slowly lowered my head and backed away. By bringing the wild boar, I was also making it clear that I had no other intentions. Tiger Dad stepped forward and sniffed the prey I had brought, looking a bit hesitant. His gaze shifted back and forth between the prey and me. I waited quietly, not in any hurry. After all, it's not uncommon among Amur tigers for a son to challenge his father and claim the territory as king. After nearly an hour of stalemate, Tiger Dad finally made a decision. He walked a few steps forward, rubbed against my fur, then let out a low growl, and finally turned around and left with the wild boar I had brought. Although Tiger Dad was no longer as affectionate toward me as he used to be, he still allowed me to hunt temporarily within his territory. Tiger Dad's reaction was both within my expectations and beyond them. I had originally thought I would be ruthlessly driven away or given a harsh lesson, but instead, Tiger Dad left a bit of leeway, handling things in a less direct manner. Perhaps this compromise also carried the last traces of fatherly love from Tiger Dad's side, but I understand that becoming stronger is always the right thing to do. Even if it means being distanced by my parents, I will never regret stumbling forward across Tiger Dad's territory. At this moment, I felt a sense of loneliness. Perhaps every Amur tiger has experienced such a moment. Without the support of my parents, my world would become even broader. With Tiger Dad's permission, I could ensure that I wouldn't starve to death when winter arrived. My goal was achieved, so I planned to head back, and after walking a short distance forward, I suddenly came across the corpse of a leopard in a clearing ahead. A strong sense of unease compelled me to immediately turn around and sprint wildly in another direction. Although I'm not superstitious, I still followed my instincts. I quickly crossed this overlapping area and entered Tiger Mom's territory, just as I was finally able to breathe a sigh of relief. A chill shot straight up my spine. At that moment, a male tiger was staring at me with a cold, indifferent gaze. My body trembled instinctively, but I forced myself to stop. That male tiger had been tracking my footprints from behind all along. I felt a wave of lingering fear. If I had been even a little slower just now, I might have ended up as a corpse too. Faced with the male tiger's deathly indifference, I didn't back down. I stood across from him and met his gaze with the same look, silently taking note of this danger, waiting for the day I become an adult. I will definitely avenge today's humiliation, but just as I managed to calm myself, a new wave of unease suddenly rose within me. Then, an angry tiger's roar echoed through the forest, coming from the spot where the 2 orphaned tigers, Dahu and Erhu, had been hiding earlier. Oh no! I was startled, and immediately sprinted toward the cave as fast as I could. At that moment, the ground in front of the cave was trembling. Tiger Mom stood there, with her fur bristling, and Tiger Brother blocked her way, refusing to move, no matter how furiously she roared. This little guy remembered the advice I gave him before I left, and for the first time, he roared back at Tiger Mom. Hearing this not-so-loud tiger roar, Tiger Mom was stunned. She couldn't believe that the cub she had raised would act this way. In her eyes, this was nothing short of disgraceful. So, faced with her son repeatedly blocking her, Tiger Mom became furious. She raised her powerful paw and swatted Tiger Brother, sending him flying 10 meters away. Tiger Mom then stepped closer and closer to Dahu and Ya. Even though I arrived just in time and stood opposite Tiger Mom, I immediately let out a warning roar. Unless absolutely necessary, I didn't want to fight my own mother, but Tiger Mom completely ignored my warning and bit down on my shoulder. I did not resist Tiger Mom's attack. Perhaps it was the scent of blood that calmed Tiger Mom's previously furious expression. After all, even a tiger won't eat her own cubs. She still cared about her last remaining kin. She just couldn't understand why her son would help the offspring of an intruder. Tiger Mom's expression kept changing, and in the end, she seemed to make up her mind. She let out a loud, resonant roar as a final farewell, then walked away, without looking back. Wu Di seemed to realize something and ran after Tiger Mom, but she kicked him away again. Watching this scene, I felt a bit lost. My brother and I had been mercilessly driven away by our mother. Although I had imagined that one day we might be cast out by our parents, I never thought it would happen so soon. But for the sake of future plans, I had no choice but to protect the 2 tiger cubs, Huda and Hu-Er. As long as we could survive this winter, I would become the undisputed king of this forest in the future. They could no longer stay here. We had to quickly find a safe place, close enough to their parents' territory, yet still separated. It took 2 hours to traverse the territory of that male tiger, and I led the 3 little ones to a temporary shelter. This spot was near a water source and had a natural stone formation. Maybe it was because he hadn't adapted yet, but Tiger Brother's eyes were still filled with confusion. However, I didn't go over to comfort him any further. Every Amur tiger has its own path to follow, but I wanted Tiger Brother to have a unique and extraordinary tiger life. Now, With 3 tiger cubs to raise each day, I had to make sure to hunt prey that was heavy enough to feed them all. In addition, the responsibility of teaching the 3 cubs hunting skills also fell on me. After a short rest, I set out with the 3 little tigers. However, just as we reached the edge of the tigress's territory, a sudden commotion erupted in the forest. I hurried the 3 little ones to hide in the grass. Not long after, a pack of migrating grey wolves appeared. More than 20 of them, both large and small. Although they weren't very large, there were many of them. I didn't know where this pack of grey wolves was headed, so for the safety of the 3 little ones, I decided to wait. But plans can never keep up with changes. 2 or 3 grey wolves were unconsciously heading in the direction where we were hiding. Perhaps the wolf pack intended to rest here, and as fellow predators, they would naturally want to check all the places where an ambush could be set. I signaled to the 3 little ones to stay as quiet as possible. After glancing around at our surroundings, I also came up with an emergency plan in case we were discovered by the wolves. I would have the little ones find a tall tree to climb up, so there would be no worries. Even when facing more than a dozen adult grey wolves, I wasn't afraid at all. A few wolves took a few steps forward, then suddenly stopped, as if they had caught a scent that terrified them. Their limbs began to tremble uncontrollably. Seeing this, I knew we couldn't stay hidden any longer. Before the wolves could howl to alert their companions, I launched my attack first. Since we had been discovered, as an armored tiger, I had to take the initiative. The grey wolves immediately let out a series of howls and quickly banded together to defend against my attack, relying on their numbers and frequently issuing warning calls. They tried to scare me off with this tactic, but I let out a loud and deep tiger roar. Except for the lead wolf, who remained relatively calm, the other grey wolves were clearly panicked. The lead wolf bared its teeth, but showed no intention of backing down. Unfortunately, this wolf could never have imagined that I was an armored tiger with a human soul, and I would never play by the usual rules. I charged straight into the wolf pack and launched an attack on the lead wolf, swatting it away with a single paw. Then I stopped, since I didn't want to be surrounded and attacked by the whole pack. Seeing this, the rest of the grey wolves no longer dared to stay and tucked their tails as they scattered and fled in all directions. The 3 little ones who had been waiting in the tree slid down from the trunk. In their eyes, I was even braver than a fully grown Amur tiger, and their gazes were filled with admiration. I let out a low growl, keeping my eyes fixed in the direction where the grey wolves had fled. For some reason, a sense of danger welled up in my heart again. Ever since migrating to this hellish place, I had noticed that both predators and prey were unusually active in the area. I decided to take the initiative and, imitating my parents, patrol this small territory myself. Then, after driving away the small and medium-sized predators that competed with me for food resources, I returned to the cave, lay down, and took a short nap to restore my energy. Looking at this territory that did not yet belong to me, a surge of ambition once again rose in my heart. From this moment on, I would begin to lay the groundwork for my future path as a king. Calling out to the 3 little ones to follow me, I officially set out on my patrol. Although my intimidation was not as great as that of an adult Amur tiger, today I was determined to drive out those hunters and display my own tiger might. Doing this might very well annoy my parents, but I no longer really care. After all, once this winter is over, there will be no place for me in this territory anyway. As I patrolled the territory again today, I experienced something I never had before. Perhaps my tiger roar was too loud, and in the end, it even startled my parents, who were honeymooning in the distance on my father's territory. It seemed that my father understood what I was doing at that moment, and he let out a roar as well, expressing his displeasure. I didn't take my father's warning to heart. After all, I am his son. As long as I don't cross any lines, he won't do anything to me. Besides, my father is currently a man on his honeymoon, and has no time to worry about these things. For him, breeding is the most important thing right now. In fact, when my father let out that warning roar, I even felt an urge to go back. At that moment, I somewhat understood why Amur tigers would drive away their nearly grown cubs. Such rebellious children. Although my size is already close to that of an adult tiger, there are always some animals that are not afraid. Not far away, on a small hill, 2 leopards sat together, watching me patrol from a distance. After observing them for a moment, I quickly recognized these 2 leopards as old enemies. Previously, when my father led my younger brother and me on a patrol, he had killed a leopard. These were the very same leopard brothers standing before me now. Perhaps it was the trials of the forest that had made them more reserved, or perhaps it was the deterrence of my father's dominance. The 2 brothers didn't immediately rush down to attack me, but I still underestimated the hatred they held for my family. As night fell, and I was leading my 3 younger tiger siblings back to the cave, those 2 leopards slowly emerged from the jungle and blocked my path. I don't know where these 2 survivors found the courage to challenge my tiger authority, but it was the perfect opportunity to take advantage of their provocation. To make an example out of them. Clearly, the 2 surviving leopards recognized me as well. After all, my father had killed their brother, so it was only natural for them to seek revenge on me. The cub. I shielded my tiger siblings behind me, and let out a furious roar at the 2 leopards in the distance, just like a king awaiting the challenge of his enemies. Although I was much larger than an average tiger cub, the leopard brothers still didn't take me seriously. They stood to my left and right, forming a pincer, and the battle was about to erupt. Many predators in the surrounding forest were watching this confrontation. I had to defeat the leopard brothers with overwhelming force to prove my path to kingship. The first step, faced with their encirclement, I launched the initial attack. After months of survival lessons, the leopard brothers were already prepared. They were even more in sync now. Whenever I attacked one of the leopards, the other would suddenly charge at me. When I had to turn around to defend myself, the first leopard would attack from the other side in the same way. But I wasn't afraid at all, thanks to the thickness of the fat on my body. Even if a leopard managed to bite me, it wouldn't be able to rip me open. However, if I could seize the opportunity to bite either of the leopards, it would be fatal for them. So I focused all my strength on the leopard in front of me. Yet, my speed was no match for theirs. Every time I was just about to sink my teeth into its neck, they always managed to dodge at the last moment. But soon I found a way to counter them. I pretended to relentlessly chase the leopard in front, but it was just a feint. When the leopard behind caught up to attack, I suddenly turned around and bit down hard. Even though a leopard's spine is both tough and brittle, my bite force, comparable to that of an adult female Amur tiger, snapped it instantly. The other leopard was terrified by its brother's tragic fate. Realizing what had happened, it panicked and fled in desperation. In its mind, the leader of the tiger cubs shouldn't have been this ferocious. For the safety of the three little ones behind me, I didn't give chase. I believe today's battle will make the watching predators recognize my strength. Now, aside from a true adult Amur tiger, there isn't a single predator who would dare face me head-on. Having dealt with the minor trouble here, I continued on my patrol with the three tiger cubs. Just then, I caught a familiar scent in the air. Looking toward the distant hillside, I saw the figure of Tiger Father appear once again. This time, he didn't make a sound. He simply gazed at me from afar, with deep, commanding eyes, as if conveying something. Perhaps it was a sign of approval. However, just as we were about to enter Tiger Mother's territory at the edge of the forest, the roar of another male tiger echoed from the nearby woods. This was the voice of a completely unfamiliar male tiger. A few minutes later, another roar of a male tiger echoed from a different direction in the forest. A second, unfamiliar adult male tiger. This made me feel even more tense and uneasy. Just then, a familiar and even deeper tiger roar sounded in the distance, as if in response. I finally breathed a sigh of relief. With Tiger Father, a prime adult male, holding the territory, other outsider males would not dare to invade recklessly, unless, in a fight, Tiger Father was defeated, but that was impossible. In terms of size and strength, Tiger Father stands firmly among the current generation of adult Amur tigers. After hesitating for a moment, I decided to continue along the edge of the territory. On one hand, it was out of respect for Tiger Mother's authority as the resident tiger. On the other, I also wanted to catch a glimpse of the newly arrived adult male tiger. This was likely a recently matured wandering male, searching for a territory to claim, or perhaps coming to the edge of a resident tiger's domain, to roar provocatively. If the resident tiger didn't respond, or showed signs of aging and declining strength, the newcomer would seize the opportunity to take over. If I could see this unfamiliar male with my own eyes, and assess its strength, it would help me plan for the future. The further I walked, the stronger my sense of unease grew. Often, a tiger's sixth sense is incredibly accurate, so I had the youngest cub lead Tiger 1 and Tiger 2 in another direction, while I headed toward the source of the roar. Sure enough, after walking less than 2 kilometers, through the gaps between the trees, I caught sight of that powerful adult Amur tiger. A strong urge to fight surged within me. Perhaps sensing something, the tiger looked warily in my direction and even passed right by where I was hiding. Although this tiger had only just reached adulthood, in terms of weight, strength, and the bite force of its jaws, it was already superior to me. Charging in recklessly, driven by hot blood, was clearly not a wise choice at this moment. I suppressed my urge to fight and watched as the male tiger walked past me. If only I had another 6 months. In this forest, I would become invincible. At this moment, I was completely unaware of it. Unconsciously, my desire to fight grew stronger and stronger, making me feel less and less like a human. Lately, Tiger Mom has been eager to be with Tiger Dad to have another litter, so I've been the one hunting in this territory, providing enough food for myself and my 3 tiger brothers. One day, as I was teaching the 3 little ones hunting skills, something unusual happened. In the area where the territories of 3 Amur tigers overlapped, a series of tiger roars swept through the mountains and forests like waves. Those roars were filled with anger, and thanks to my keen hearing, I also heard other subtle sounds and immediately realized that it was 2 male tigers fighting. Instantly, I became alert and dashed over at full speed. I was so excited. Territorial disputes like this were something I had never witnessed before. Today was the perfect chance to join the excitement and broaden my horizons. In a sunlit area, after running more than 10 kilometers, I stood on a high vantage point and could clearly see the fight unfolding. The animals near the forest, terrified by the ferocious tiger roars, scattered and fled in all directions. One of the tigers was the young adult Amur tiger I had seen before, and the other was not Tiger Dad either. It was actually the adult tiger that had always coexisted peacefully with Tiger Dad, ruling over the neighboring territory. Perhaps the wandering male tiger had already encountered Tiger Dad, and after weighing his options, decided to challenge this one instead. This local tiger, who seemed less powerful than Tiger Dad, and the challenger stood upright on their hind legs like humans, swiping at each other's upper bodies with their paws. Before long, both were covered in blood. Soon, just clawing at each other was no longer enough to display their dominance as kings. The 2 male tigers began to bite each other, fighting with sheer ferocity. Among Amur tigers, these fights are usually the most brutal and ferocious among Amur tigers, with both sides rarely showing any signs of surrender or giving up. As night gradually fell, after the initial phase of mutual injury, the 2 male tigers were now enduring a test of who would lose patience and reveal a weakness first. Whoever did would face a fatal blow. At the same time, they were aware that the surrounding forests were filled with onlookers, all witnessing the outcome. Defeating the other in front of such an audience would further establish their own authority. Although both tigers were injured, none of the other predators dared to underestimate them. Instead, they looked on with awe and respect. After enduring for about half an hour, the territorial tiger was the first to succumb to exhaustion. Coupled with the injury to his foreleg, his body wavered slightly. Although he quickly corrected his posture, his opponent seized the opportunity. In that fleeting moment, with a flash like fire, the young male who had only recently become the territorial tiger was pinned beneath the vagabond. There was no suspense. Even though both were Amo tigers, no adult tiger could withstand the bite force of another. The victor had emerged, and the territory that had just been secured now once again fell into the hands of this young male. The defeated Amo tiger before us vividly illustrated the fate of the loser. That's why I've always been biding my time, quietly building up my strength. When I become strong enough, I will embark on my own path to kingship, challenging different territorial tigers along the way, and ultimately becoming the king of kings. I want to be even stronger than my tiger father, to rule over an even vaster forest, and like humans, become the true king of the Amur tigers, defeating each one in turn, granting them their own territories, and having them obey my commands. As the three little ones grow, their appetites are clearly increasing, which means the pressure on me to hunt is also rising. I must secure my own territory as soon as possible. Only then can I meet the needs of all four of us tigers. After leaving my mother's territory, I became especially cautious, because in this area, besides my tiger father, there are also two unfamiliar bears. If I run into them, it will almost certainly end badly. But as fate would have it, what you fear most always seems to happen. Just as I found a temporary place to settle, I heard the footsteps of an adult male tiger coming from the forest behind me. I wasn't sure if this adult male tiger was the one my father had blinded before, but I always felt that the blind tiger harbored some special intentions. I immediately leapt to a higher vantage point, and looked in the direction of the sound. Sure enough, it was the blind tiger, but his behavior seemed a bit unusual. He was actually carrying an unrotted male tiger's head in his mouth, and he was heading straight toward the border between my father's territory and that of the new territorial tiger. I started to feel uneasy, even a bit worried, afraid that what I had previously suspected was slowly becoming reality. If this male tiger's head were to appear in my father's territory, the consequences would be unimaginable. At that moment, a terrifying thought crossed my mind. Could it be that this blind tiger was doing this on purpose? Was he trying to provoke a conflict between my father and the young male tiger in the forest? Even if the young male tiger next door couldn't defeat my father, he could still use his youthful strength to inflict some injuries on him. Then the blind tiger could seize the opportunity to launch a sneak attack. This line of reasoning sent chills down my spine. Despite having watched plenty of wildlife documentaries in my previous life, I still found it hard to believe that an Amur tiger could actually pull off such a scheme, using one tiger to drive out and devour another. To test my suspicion, I secretly followed the blind tiger from a distance, and watched as he entered my father's territory. After about 10 minutes, he came back out, and the male tiger's head was gone. It's very likely now hidden somewhere in the mountains and forests of my father's territory. You can imagine, once my patrolling father discovers it, a conflict between the two neighboring territorial tigers is bound to erupt, but I can't just go and tell my father directly. This was the blind tiger's work, and I couldn't let him plot against my father. Approaching my father's land, an angry roar echoed. It was bad news. That roar was unmistakably my father's. I ran as fast as possible to stop it, but arriving, I saw things had already gone wrong. My father glared fiercely at the severed head of the male tiger. To him, the neighboring young cub was being disrespectful, trespassing, and delivering this gift. This was an invasion, a challenge to the Tiger King's dignity that could not be tolerated, as his furious roars made clear. My father was furious inside, and if I rashly approached him at this moment, I could very well become the first target for him to vent his anger on. After all, our father-son relationship was no longer as close as it used to be. Right now, I should do everything I can to prevent my father and that young male tiger from meeting face to face. But what surprised me even more than this situation was the cunning and scheming of the blind tiger. This was already beyond what a Siberian tiger should be capable of. Could it be that, like me, he also possesses a human soul? At this moment, my father was like a powder keg, ready to explode. The fuse was the blind tiger, and the flame was the one near the territory, the young male tiger. My father, with a hostile look in his eyes, walked toward the edge of the nearby territory, completely consumed by anger. At this moment, the young male tiger was patrolling his forest, spraying his urine on the trees wherever he went to mark and display his scent, intimidating any intruders. But in the next instant, a terrifying tiger roar echoed within his territory. The new lord instantly cast aside his excitement. A male tiger had come to challenge him, and even brazenly let out a mocking roar, openly inviting him to fight. Having just defeated another male tiger, how could he possibly tolerate this? Watching my father steadily approach the other tiger's territory, I was extremely anxious and couldn't wait any longer. When my father entered the young male tiger's territory, I couldn't care about anything else. I let out a tiger roar in the forest nearby, imitating my mother's tone. It seemed that my father, who was farther away, heard it and responded with a roar of his own. Seeing my father stop in his tracks, I finally breathed a sigh of relief. At critical moments, it's always the tigress's roar that works best. But when my father, who was still confused, saw that it was me, his previously relaxed mood turned irritable again. But unexpectedly, when I hurriedly ran to my father's side and was just about to tell him what I had seen earlier, I was suddenly struck hard by a slap from him. Immediately after, a warning roar, full of menace, came at me. My father was extremely angry, probably because I had imitated my mother's call. I stepped forward and also let out a tiger roar, trying to signal to my father that there was danger ahead. But just as I finished the first sentence, the atmosphere in the depths of the opposite forest, where the young tiger was, instantly became so tense, it felt frozen. Although there was some estrangement between my father and me, this was a matter of family. As the young male tiger approached, my father still unhesitatingly shielded me behind him. The two male tigers stared at each other, the dangerous light in their yellow eyes growing ever more intense. My gaze. As I scanned the surroundings, my instincts told me that the one-eyed tiger, the mastermind behind all this, was watching from some hidden corner. A few seconds later, both male tigers simultaneously accelerated and charged at each other. My father truly lived up to his reputation as a battle-hardened veteran. The moment the young male tiger lunged at his body to bite, my father's massive paw struck out at just the right distance. The young tiger took a solid slap, and a flash of fear and unease appeared in his eyes. Shaking his somewhat dizzy head to regain his composure, he once again leapt at my father with renewed fighting spirit. But just like the first time, my father used his experience to land another slap on him. Father Tiger's contempt for the young male tiger made the latter feel a deep sense of humiliation. Both of his attacks had been effortlessly slapped away, and his face still burned with pain, something the young tiger could no longer tolerate. He let out continuous, dangerous, and angry roars, pacing back and forth a short distance ahead, seemingly searching for the best angle and moment to strike. Just then, I spotted the one-eyed tiger, perched on a rock 2 kilometers away. He was quietly observing everything happening here, watching as Father Tiger and the young male tiger stared each other down. He wanted to intervene, but was worried it might make things even worse. Father Tiger had no intention of holding back, and began looking for an opportunity to strike first. With his wealth of combat experience, he was far superior to the young male tiger, who was just a novice. Seizing the right moment, Father Tiger lunged at the young tiger. His airborne figure loomed like a shadow, instantly enveloping the young tiger from above. In no time, he had pinned the young tiger beneath him, sinking his teeth deep into his body. Only then did the young tiger realize the true terror of Father Tiger. The fear in his eyes was almost palpable at that moment, and he bitterly regretted his actions. If he managed to escape with his life today, he would probably never set foot in Father Tiger's territory again. After a brief struggle, Father Tiger released his grip on the young tiger's body and then moved toward his ear. He let out a deafening tiger roar. This was the most powerful form of intimidation. Father Tiger also did not deal a fatal blow to the defeated opponent, which seemed to be an unspoken rule among male tigers during fights. The one-eyed tiger had disappeared at some point, and I didn't know that. Just after Father Tiger and I had left, the one-eyed tiger silently reappeared. He stuck out his tongue and licked the tiger blood left on the ground, then surveyed the area. Upon discovering that all the blood scattered on the ground belonged to the young tiger, a ripple of emotion unexpectedly appeared in his usually calm tiger eyes. It was an expression of disdain. After sniffing the fur that Father Tiger had shed on the forest floor, the gaze in the one-eyed tiger's remaining eye grew even colder. In the blink of an eye, 3 months passed. During this time, the young tiger would occasionally come to the edge of the territory, hurriedly marking it with urine before running off. But one day, while I was out hunting with the tigers, I noticed something unusual in the mountains and forests. Because of this, I deliberately sniffed the young tiger's urine markings from before, and realized something was off. Even though he feared the authority of Father and Mother Tiger, the young male tiger would still sneak to the edge of his territory and spray a patch. But now, the scent was noticeably stronger, which didn't make sense. If a male tiger no longer marks his territory with his own urine, there's only one possibility. This thought suddenly flashed through my mind. It gave me quite a scare, especially when I recalled the one-eyed tiger's previous actions, which made my unease grow even stronger. After making this discovery, I cautiously ventured deeper into this area, covering several dozen kilometers, and sniffed around 2 or 3 different spots in succession. All the territorial markers that should have been there had disappeared. Something unknown must have happened in the meantime. So I decided to go to the center of the young tiger's territory to investigate. But what I saw there completely overturned my understanding. As I gradually approached the area around the young tiger's den, I saw many animal carcasses along the way. Normally, it's not unusual to find animal carcasses in a Siberian tiger's territory, but the sheer number of these bodies was enough to make even a tiger like me shudder. This was nothing short of an indiscriminate massacre targeting all animals. I quickly climbed up onto a high rock. Looking out, I saw that within a radius of 1 or 2 kilometers, there were actually over 100 animal carcasses. Examining each animal's remains closely, I found that most of them had been bitten in the throat and killed with a single blow. Even medium to large animals like wild boars had their cervical vertebrae shattered at the neck. What was even more bizarre was that these animal bodies seemed to have been hollowed out, leaving only skin and bones behind. Judging from the current weather and the degree of decomposition, these animals had all been killed within the past 2 weeks. But what frightened me the most was that such a major event had occurred. Not only did I, who was at the edge of the territory, fail to notice anything unusual, but even my experienced parents didn't sense anything out of the ordinary. On the way as I investigated, I felt immense pressure, as if the surrounding mountains and forests were a gigantic creature watching over this area. The atmosphere was so unnaturally quiet that not even the birds in the forest chose to land here. Braving this overwhelming psychological pressure, I gradually approached the location of the tiger's den. As soon as I entered the area within 200 or 300 meters of the den, I caught an unusual scent in the air again, one that was familiar, belonging to a young tiger. There was also an unfamiliar scent of another tiger, as well as an overwhelmingly strong smell of blood. I walked into the darkness ahead, where a faint glimmer of light appeared. I could now see the scene inside the tiger's den. It was a bewitching flower exuding an intense, bloody aroma. At the very top of the flower, a tiny red fruit was releasing an incredibly enticing fragrance. But what truly terrified me was where this plant had taken root. Countless roots and stems were burrowing into the flesh and bones of the young tiger, writhing as they drew nutrients from its body to feed the plant above. Everything before my eyes was so bizarre that it was beyond anything I had ever known. In a daze, I caught another whiff of that alluring scent. Unconsciously, I took a step forward, and immediately, the entire scene before my eyes changed. Skyscrapers, dazzling lights, and scenes of nightlife, images I had almost forgotten since being reborn as a tiger, appeared once again. Fearfully, I looked down at my own body. My once thick tiger paws had turned into 5 human fingers. From up ahead, I suddenly felt a sense of closeness and familiarity. I wanted to go up and say hello, to ask if we knew each other, but a sudden wave of unease flashed through my heart, making me stop just as I was about to take another step. Then, I felt a piercing pain. When I opened my eyes again, nothing around me had changed. I was still a Siberian tiger, and even my paws were just as they had been. That crimson plant was desperately trying to take root in my body, and by now it had already broken through the fur and skin at my paw, coming into contact with the blood inside. When I looked up again at the corner in front of the tiger's den, the young tiger that had still been able to let out faint, pained groans was now a corpse, in the same miserable state as those animals outside the cave. Realizing what was happening, I instinctively tried to tear the strange plant's stem out with my paw, but to my surprise, I couldn't break it no matter how hard I pulled. Then, I clamped my jaws tightly around the plant's stem, my sharp teeth digging in as I forced myself to endure the nausea. I clenched my jaws tightly, chewing on the strange plant trapped in my mouth. Suddenly, a wave of warmth surged through my body. There was no time to think. I just wanted to escape this bizarre and terrifying place as quickly as possible. Because the roots had pierced into my paw, I couldn't shake them off, no matter how hard I tried. In the end, I simply gave a forceful shake and dragged the entire plant out of the tiger's den, forcing myself to endure the discomfort until I reached the area of the tigress's territory, where I finally stopped. Remembering how I had swallowed a bit of that bewitching plant earlier, I bit down on it again. Instantly, a rich fragrance filled my mouth, and the strange plant stem suddenly became as hard as stone. Just then, that mysterious power within me surged forth. In an instant, the rigid plant shattered into pieces, and the sweet liquid flowing from the strange plant slid down into my stomach. The mysterious energy inside me instantly became restless, circulating throughout my body with a vigor 10 times greater than usual. I could clearly feel the changes happening within me. The liquid inside this thing could actually cause a massive increase in my mysterious energy. The sensation of my strength skyrocketing was intoxicating, and at that moment, the one-eyed tiger quietly returned to the tiger's den from earlier. However, it quickly sensed that something was wrong. The red plant it was so obsessed with had disappeared. It searched around the den, then gradually picked up some faint traces, and the scent of its own kind. Following the trail, the one-eyed tiger slowly tracked it. Clearly, the recent disappearance of the one-eyed tiger was closely related to this plant. At this moment, I had completely swallowed the plant. With my body now strengthened, not only could my nose and ears detect things from much farther away, but my speed and strength had also increased significantly, reaching a level comparable to that of an ordinary adult male tiger. Something even I hadn't realized. As I ran, my body underwent many unusual changes, as if a strange, special sensation was spreading throughout me, like an evolution. Gradually, I realized that something was increasingly wrong with my condition. Not daring to linger in the forest, I rushed at high speed toward the tiger's den where I had settled. However, a dizzy feeling, similar to being drunk, grew stronger and stronger. In just a few kilometers, I crashed through dozens of trees. The one-eyed tiger, chasing behind me, upon seeing this scene, was not surprised at all. It seemed he had experienced such changes before, and he continued to pursue me for another 7 or 8 miles. The expression in the one-eyed tiger's eyes was somewhat complicated. At this moment, he confirmed my identity. Standing in the forest, he pondered for a while, but ultimately gave up on the idea of continuing the pursuit. Even though that strange demonic plant was something he had risked his life to bring out, and it had greatly enhanced his strength, he still wasn't confident that he could win. After coming to their senses, the 2 little ones even found the crawling plant somewhat attractive. They took a few steps forward to get a closer look, and little tiger was only startled by it at first. Then he also became very interested in it. Just at that moment, a pair of strong, powerful claws suddenly struck forward. The roots of the strange plant were just a few centimeters away from touching the little tiger. At the critical moment, my tiger paw came down, saving his life. I still felt a bit dizzy in my head, and as soon as I opened my eyes, I vaguely saw the scene ahead. Without hesitation, I raised my tiger paw and slammed it down. However, the loud noise startled me. Clearly, I had only lifted my paw and pressed down lightly, yet my claws sank more than 10 centimeters into the soil. I was not only surprised by the power of my own paw strike, but also by the sweet spring-like liquid that oozed from the strange plant. It seemed that this liquid was extremely beneficial for enhancing strength. From the moment I saw this bizarre plant, I realized this was not a simple matter. Perhaps even more incredible things would happen in the future. In order to become stronger, I had to seize every opportunity, and this strange plant might just be my chance. Glancing at the plant, now completely flattened into the soil, I used my claws to hook it up from the ground, then told the three little ones to stay back and headed to the spot where I had previously discarded animal bones. I found a wild boar leg bone and placed the strange plant on top of it. Nothing changed. The strange plant still pretended to be dead, looking as if it had withered, but I could sense that it still had life in it. This appearance was just an act. I silently moved a bit closer, then gently ground my newly sharpened, 5-foot-long bare threat. With my current size and greatly increased strength, if I really chewed on this strange plant like before, I was afraid my tiger fangs would tear it to pieces and I would end up swallowing it. With a soft zing sound, the strange plant instantly went from limp to rigid. Then, under my threat, all of its roots quickly anchored themselves above the wild boar's leg bone. I carefully observed the state of the strange plant. Its roots easily pierced through the hard bone and burrowed deep inside, absorbing the nutrients it needed. Thinking back to what I had seen before, I became more alert, wondering if this thing had any other tricks up its sleeve. If it appeared elsewhere in this forest, it would be a disaster for all the animals. The three little ones didn't understand why their big brother had just been lying on the ground, making strange noises, with odd things crawling out of his mouth. Then, he suddenly woke up and started acting so strangely. The three little ones trotted over and gathered around their big brother, watching this bizarre scene. My dad pulled the three curious little guys away, and then watched the changes in the strange plant. The red fruit on top, which had been there before, was now almost gone, and the thumb-thick golden eggs all over its body had shriveled a lot, looking sickly. After the roots pierced into the wild boar's leg bone, a faint silver light began to gather from the base, layer by layer, eventually all converging into the fruit at the top. I realized that this strange plant was absorbing the life essence of other creatures. Then it condenses into the fruit at the top, allowing the plant to evolve. This scene left me a bit bewildered. Could it be that this forest is about to undergo another earth-shattering change? After my mutation, my eyes were no longer simply yellow, but now had a hint of crimson. Staring intently at the strange plant at this moment, I truly felt that danger and terror always come hand in hand with risk. I sighed, then let out a warning sound, telling the three little ones to stay farther away from the strange plant, while I ran off into the distant forest. It had only been a little over 10 minutes. I came back carrying a wild rabbit I had killed in my mouth. Glancing at that plant in the distance, I saw that it hadn't moved at all. It was still rooted on the now nutritionless wild boar leg bone, gently swaying its slender body with the mountain breeze, looking just like a little demon that had gained a spirit. I walked up and tossed the dead rabbit beside the strange plant. Before I could do anything else, the plant very consciously moved its roots over. In just 7 or 8 minutes, the 7 or 8 Jin wild rabbit had all its life essence sucked dry by the plant. It seemed that this way of life wasn't much different from before. Wherever it went, there was always something to eat. The strange plant's consciousness surged with satisfaction. Then its body swayed slightly, lowering itself before me in a somewhat ingratiating manner, and stretched out several roots in front of me. In the next moment, at the tip of one of the strange plant's roots, a drop of blue-green liquid, about the size of a pinhead, appeared and hung in midair. I understood then. This drop of blue-green liquid was probably the entirety of the life essence from that wild rabbit, but this time, I didn't stick out my tongue to lick it. Glancing back, I called over the three little ones behind me and summoned Little Tiger as well. Following his big brother's command, Little Tiger stuck out his tongue, and as the blue-green liquid on the plant's root dripped down, a rich, fresh fragrance instantly filled Little Tiger's mouth, then immediately merged into his body. The liquid merged into his bloodstream and began to flow to other parts of his body. However, after taking just a few steps forward, Little Tiger's body started to sway unsteadily, and before he could reach Jia Hekyu's side, he suddenly collapsed to the ground with a thud. I hurried over to check on him. His breathing was still steady. He had just temporarily lost consciousness. Relieved, I stayed by his side to keep watch. As for the strange plant, after secreting that drop of blue-green liquid, its body also became somewhat sticky, as if this process was quite a burden for it as well. This time, I could tell that a single drop was definitely not its limit. The reason it appeared so weak was partly an act for my benefit. I couldn't help but marvel. This thing was simply unlike any ordinary plant. It was more like a plant that had gained sentience, even understanding some social nuances, and how to feign weakness. You could say it played the role of a fence-sitter to perfection. If the one-eyed man had witnessed this scene, he would probably have been even more indignant. Why was it that after providing so much nourishment, he only received a few drops of this creature's life essence, and even then had to wait for its charity like Old Man Chew? I understood what the appearance of this strange plant signified, and the kind of impact it would have on this mountain forest, but I also realized that this might be the sign of a new world beginning, and I had to prepare in advance. The sudden changes disrupted Chinhu's original plans. After closely watching Little Tiger to make sure there were no other life-threatening issues, Chinhu relaxed. After waiting for 2 hours, Little Tiger finally opened his eyes groggily, still a bit disoriented. Chinhu didn't have time to observe the process carefully before he got ready to continue hunting. He reminded the three little ones to stay away from that strange plant. After that, Chinhu headed back into the forest. Although his body had undergone some changes and the process was quite painful, the gains were considerable. At the very least, Chinhu could now feel the immense power hidden within his body. Winter had already arrived, and Chinhu not only had to provide food for the three little ones, but also had to figure out a way to supply some nourishment for that tree as well. well. He wanted the tree to produce more of that sweet liquid, at the very least, enough for the three little ones to evolve. While waiting for little Tiger to wake up, Chin-Hu also discovered that the bluish-green sweet liquid had a tremendous effect on strengthening a creature's body. If consumed in large quantities, or over a long period, it could even break genetic limits, and allow one to evolve into a higher form of life. Chin-Hu's heart burned with excitement, and he ran even faster through the forest, now able to leap 6 or 7 meters in a single bound, after trying it out in the woods. Looking at the basketball-sized pit he had made with a single swipe of his paw, Chin-Hu found it hard to gauge the extent of his current strength. And this time, the gains weren't limited to just increased strength and speed. His senses, such as hearing and perception, had also improved dramatically. With this all-around enhancement of his physical abilities, Chin-Hu couldn't help but feel overjoyed. With his current power, even if he encountered other adult Siberian tigers, he would be able to stand his ground, or even defeat them. As Chin-Hu thought about this, he also prepared to provide enough nourishment for that strange demonic plant. The bluish-green life energy produced was also gradually consumed by the three little ones, allowing them to grow up as quickly as possible. If there was any surplus later on, Chin-Hu even considered giving some to Tiger Dad and Tiger Mom. Although the current gains were exciting, Chin-Hu also realized that, on the other hand, since such a strange and demonic plant had appeared, could there be other unknown dangers lurking ahead? The possibility of powerful creatures existing made Chin-Hu start to worry, and he began to plan and think about how to deal with such a situation. Chin-Hu felt that relying on just a few tiger cubs wasn't enough. He had to get Tiger Dad and Tiger Mom on their side as soon as possible. Only then would they have enough strength to face unknown dangers when great changes arrived. As he pondered this, Chin-Hu caught a scent in his nose, mixed with a thick and heavy scent. A black bear was eating. Chin-Hu immediately identified it in his mind, and judged that it was about a dozen kilometers ahead to his left. Chin-Hu didn't hesitate any longer. He wanted to see if, with his current strength, he could defeat or even kill a black bear. With this thought, the power within Chin-Hu's body erupted instantly, and he darted through the forest at incredible speed, determined to reach the black bear as quickly as possible. The distance of a dozen or so kilometers was neither too far, nor too close. Chin-Hu rushed over at full speed, controlling his strength, and took just over 10 minutes to arrive. The black bear was using its claws to dig into the steaming carcass of a wild boar. Suddenly, it looked up and saw Chin-Hu approaching. In that instant, an angry and dangerous roar echoed through the forest. The black bear's body was already quite hefty, and as it charged forward, its body shook with each step. Chin-Hu was not afraid, as the black bear, whose body was even larger than his own, rushed at him. Chin-Hu let out a tiger's roar in response, and charged to meet it. The black bear's dark paw suddenly struck out with force, aiming for Chin-Hu's face. Chin-Hu stared intently, eyes fixed. Chin-Hu clearly saw the black bear's paw coming at him, then anticipated its trajectory. He lowered his head slightly, and with his left tiger paw charged with power, he slashed at the black bear's plump belly. With a tearing sound like ripping cloth, when Chin-Hu's body came to a stop after dashing past, he turned his head to look back, and saw a deep wound had been gouged into the black bear's abdomen by his claws. White fat was exposed, mixed with a bit of blood, and through the enchanted black bear's belly, the organs inside were clearly visible. The black bear let out a pained howl, and the heat in its eyes instantly turned to fear. Although it hadn't completely lost its ability to fight, the claws of this young tiger before it were simply too sharp, tearing through its defenses in an instant. The black bear was terrified. If he stayed any longer, he felt he would die. Enduring the intense pain, he planted all four paws on the ground, and began to flee toward a distant cave. But Chin-Hu wasn't about to give him a chance. With a burst of strength in his limbs, he quickly picked up speed, and easily caught up to the fleeing black bear. Without any fancy moves, Chin-Hu leapt up, and pounced on the black bear, then exerted his strength to pin the bear down as it struggled to roll over. The black bear tried to attack Chin-Hu's throat with its claws, swiping at him, but it barely managed to dislodge a few of Chin-Hu's tiger hairs, leaving only a few white marks on his skin that quickly faded away. Chin-Hu hadn't expected his skin to be so tough. He had been worried before, but now, he was truly at ease. Without hesitation, Chin-Hu seized the right moment, and bit down on the black bear's throat. The bear's thick neck prevented him from biting through in one go, but after clamping down on part of it, Chin-Hu exerted force with his jaws, and still managed to bite off half of the black bear's neck in one bite, killing it instantly. Chin-Hu licked the blood from around his mouth and looked at the twitching corpse of the black bear in front of him, feeling a bit emotional. With his current strength, killing the black bear was no longer a challenge for him. In fact, he made it look rather easy. All of this was thanks to the benefits brought by that strange, demonic plant. Chin-Hu understood this well. He bit down on the black bear's paw and began dragging it outside. Glancing back at the wild boar that had been hunted by the black bear, Chin-Hu didn't let it go either. He decided to take all this food back. Some would be for the three little ones, and some would serve as nourishment for the demonic plant, refining that blue-green life substance. This easy battle both demonstrated and tested the tremendous surge in Chin-Hu's strength. If Chin-Hu wished, he now had the strength to challenge an adult male tiger, and even covet their territory. Next, Chin-Hu planned to wander around the surrounding area. If there was no longer any sign of the one-eyed wanderer in the territory previously ruled by him, Chin-Hu would consider whether to bring that land under his own control. Carrying the black bear's corpse in his mouth, and dragging the wild boar hunted by the black bear, Chin-Hu sprinted madly toward the direction of his cave. In his blood-red tiger eyes, the scenery of the forest flashed by in reverse at high speed. At this moment, Chin-Hu's weight was already close to 400 jin, about 200 kilograms. His whole body was packed with muscle, and his tiger paws stomped on the dead leaves, making a muffled sound. If someone were to look down from above, they would see a northeast tiger of astonishing size darting through the forest at an incredible speed. Ever since he devoured the fruit of that strange demonic plant, the mysterious energy inside Chin-Hu's body had surged like a breached dam, wildly strengthening every inch of his muscles and bones. He could clearly feel that the density of his bones, the toughness of his muscle fibers, and even the defensive power of his fur had all reached a whole new level. When he returned to the cave, the three little ones were circling around that strange demonic plant. Little Tiger Brother had already woken up and was now tentatively poking at the seemingly withered plant with his paw. Chin-Hu let out a low growl and tossed his prey onto the ground. That demonic plant seemed to sense the presence of death. Its previously sickly body instantly straightened up, and countless roots, like living creatures, spread toward the black bear's corpse. Chin-Hu did not stop it. He needed this plant to produce more of that blue-green life substance. He had to help the three little ones grow up as quickly as possible, because the future of the forest was unlikely to be peaceful. Early the next morning, a thin mist hung over the forest as Chin-Hu set out with the three little ones to patrol their territory. By now, his size was fully on par with that of an adult male tiger, and in some respects, he even surpassed them. He wanted every predator in this forest to know that there was a new master here. Chin-Hu approached a thick red pine, lifted his front and hind legs, and sprayed urine onto the trunk. The strong scent of male hormones drifted on the wind. This was the most direct way for an Ama tiger to declare its sovereignty. Not far away, a few grey wolves foraging for food caught a whiff of this scent. With their tails tucked between their legs, the wolves fled in panic. The effect was immediate. Chin-Hu let out a satisfied low growl and continued forward. When he reached a mountain ridge, Chin-Hu suddenly stopped in his tracks. His nostrils flared slightly as a strange yet familiar scent drifted in on the wind. It was the one-eyed tiger. Chin-Hu's pupils contracted sharply. The intensity of the scent indicated that the other tiger was within a 10-kilometer radius. He glanced back at the three little ones, signaling for them to hide in the bushes, then lowered his body and crept toward the source of the scent. After crossing a mountain ridge, Chin-Hu saw the figure that had put him on alert. The one-eyed tiger was standing atop a rock, its only remaining eye gazing into the distance, as if observing something. Its body was even more robust than before, exuding a violent and savage aura. Clearly, this tiger had also benefited from that strange demonic plant. Chin-Hu understood immediately. Judging by the scent emanating from the one-eyed tiger, its strength had increased by at least 20%. While Chin-Hu was observing, the one-eyed tiger seemed to sense something as well. It suddenly turned its head, its single eye sweeping over like a bolt of lightning. Their eyes met, and it was as if sparks flew in the air. Chin-Hu did not back down. Instead, he slowly stood up from the bushes. Standing tall, he let out a deep, low tiger roar. That roar carried both a warning and a provocation. The one-eyed tiger was silent for a moment, then actually turned and left. It was afraid of Chin-Hu. A surge of pride welled up in Chin-Hu's heart. Not long ago, he was still that little cub who trembled at the sight of an adult male tiger, but now he could make a strengthened male tiger retreat on its own. After patrolling his territory, Chin-Hu led the three little ones back. As they passed the edge of their mother's territory, Chin-Hu caught a familiar scent. He looked up, and on a distant hillside, the imposing figure of his father stood quietly. Father and son faced each other across several hundred meters. Their eyes met. This time, his father did not let out a warning roar, nor did he turn and leave. He simply stood there, his deep eyes seeming to hold a complex emotion. Perhaps this was a sign of acceptance. A warm feeling surged in Chin-Hu's heart. He knew that in the world of Amo tigers, there were only two kinds of relationships between adult males, either enemies or neighbors who left each other alone. And his father's attitude at this moment was clearly telling him, "You now have the right to stand your ground in these mountains and forests." Chin-Hu let out a short roar in his father's direction. That was a son's greeting to his father. The old tiger was silent for a moment, then finally turned and disappeared into the forest. Days passed by like this, and Chin-Hu's daily life became extremely routine. During the day, he hunted to feed the three little ones and that strange, demonic plant. At night, he trained them in hunting skills. With a steady supply of nutrients, that bizarre plant also underwent astonishing changes. Its main stem had grown as thick as an adult's arm, its entire body displaying a strange dark red color. Every 7 days, a drop of blue-green life essence would condense at its tip. Chin-Hu divided this life essence among the three little ones for them to consume. Little Tiger, Tiger 1, and Tiger 2 were visibly growing in size, and their fur was becoming glossier by the day. Give me another 3 months, and I'll be able to train these three little ones into true hunters, Chin-Hu calculated in his heart. However, unexpected changes always come without warning. That evening, while Chin-Hu was outside the cave, training the three little ones in combat techniques, a deafening tiger's roar suddenly echoed from afar. The roar was laced with both anger and pain. Chin-Hu's nerves instantly tensed. It was Tiger Dad's voice, and he could tell it was coming from a battle. "You three stay in the cave and don't come out." Chin-Hu let out a hurried, low growl to the three little ones, then sprang forward with all his strength, shooting out like a bolt of black lightning. Chin-Hu moved at his absolute fastest, covering more than 10 kilometers in just a few minutes. When he arrived at the scene, the sight before him made his tiger eyes go wide. Tiger Dad was locked in a fierce fight with a massive male tiger. That male tiger was pitch black all over, with almost no sign of the characteristic stripes of a Siberian tiger. Its body was even larger than Tiger Dad's, and it exuded an overwhelming, suffocating aura. This was no ordinary tiger. Chin-Hu saw it at a glance. The black tiger's eyes glowed blood red, and every attack carried power and speed beyond the norm. Tiger Dad already had several deep wounds down to the bone, his blood staining the ground around him, but his gaze remained resolute, and every counterattack was made with a do-or-die determination. At this moment, Chin-Hu realized that this was another of his kind, who, like him, had consumed the strange demonic plant fruit. He was shocked. He hadn't expected that there would be a third tiger in this forest that had been enhanced. The black tiger seemed to sense Chin-Hu's arrival as well. Its blood-red eyes swept over, and the corners of its mouth curled into a strange, eerie smile. That expression didn't look like a beast's. It was more like a human's. A terrifying thought flashed through Chin-Hu's mind. But there was no time to dwell on it, because Tiger Dad was already on the verge of collapse. Chin-Hu let out a thunderous tiger roar, his body leaping up fiercely as he lunged at the black tiger. The black tiger clearly hadn't expected Chin-Hu to strike so decisively. In a hurry, it twisted its body to dodge, but was still scratched on the ribs by Chin-Hu's claws. The black tiger let out an angry roar, abandoning its attack on Tiger Dad, and turning to face Chin-Hu. The two enhanced male tigers now stood in a standoff. Tiger Dad took the opportunity to catch his breath, although he didn't understand why his son had suddenly become so powerful. He struggled to his feet and stood shoulder to shoulder with Chin-Hu. For the first time, father and son stood together on the same front. The black tiger's blood-red eyes swept over the two of them, as if weighing the pros and cons. After a moment, the black tiger let out an unwilling roar, then turned and disappeared into the forest. Chin-Hu did not give chase. He knew that with his current strength, he might barely be able to hold his own against the black tiger in a one-on-one fight, but killing it was nearly impossible. This forest was truly about to change. Watching the direction in which the black tiger vanished, Chin-Hu felt an unprecedented sense of crisis welling up inside him. Tiger Dad staggered over to a tree and began licking his wounds. Chin-Hu walked over to his father's side. He used his tongue to help clean his father's wounds. This was how Siberian tigers expressed care and intimacy with each other. Tiger Dad seemed to sense his son's intentions, let out a low growl, and rubbed his head against Chin-Hu's neck. "Father, we must join forces." Chin-Hu let out a series of deep tiger roars, trying to convey his meaning to Tiger Dad. He didn't know how much his father could understand, but he had to try. Tiger Dad was silent for a moment, then let out a tiger roar, turned, and began walking toward his own territory, taking a few steps. He looked back at Chin-Hu again, and the meaning in his eyes was obvious. "Follow me." Chin-Hu was overjoyed, and quickly caught up. Over the next few days, Chin-Hu moved with the three little ones to the edge of Tiger Dad's territory. Tiger Dad tacitly approved of all this. He even helped look after the three cubs when Chin-Hu went out hunting. This surprised and comforted Chin-Hu. Perhaps Tiger Dad also sensed the threat from that black tiger, Chin-Hu thought to himself. Meanwhile, Chin-Hu also brought that strange demonic plant to their new habitat. With a steady supply of nutrients, it continued to produce bluish-green life essence. Chin-Hu set aside a portion of this life essence and secretly mixed it into Tiger Dad's food. The wounds on Tiger Dad's body healed at an astonishing rate, and his physique also seemed to be slowly growing. If Tiger Dad could also complete his strengthening, then with father and son joining forces, they would no longer have to fear that black tiger. Chin-Hu was calculating in his mind, but the peaceful days did not last long. Late one night, Chin-Hu was dozing in the cave. Suddenly, a strong scent of blood drifted in on the wind. He snapped his eyes open and darted out of the cave. In the moonlight, a massive tiger with jet black fur was standing on a nearby rock, its blood-red eyes coldly fixed in this direction. At its feet lay the corpse of a Sika deer, already drained of all its life essence. "He's here!" Chin-Hu's fur stood on end as he let out a warning roar. Inside the cave, the three little ones were startled awake and responded with their own childish roars. In the distant forested mountains, Tiger Dad's roar echoed in response, growing closer from afar. The black tiger glanced at Chin-Hu, then looked in the direction of Tiger Dad's roar. In the end, it let out a disdainful growl, turned around, and disappeared into the night. Chin-Hu knew this was only the calm before the storm. That black tiger was definitely plotting something, and he had to become stronger before that day arrived. The next day, while patrolling his territory, Chin-Hu discovered something that shocked him. In a secluded valley, he found a second strange plant. This plant was even larger than the previous one, and the fruit at its top had turned a deep purple, emitting an enticing fragrance. But what made Chin-Hu wary was, around this plant, dozens of animal corpses were scattered, all drained of their life force. If that black tiger were to discover this plant, Chin-Hu didn't dare to imagine the consequences. He had to claim it for himself, or destroy it before it matured. Chin-Hu pondered for a moment, and finally made a decision. He turned and sprinted madly toward Tiger Dad's territory.